Her birth happened 1 year after the island of Cress was taken out of the control of the Republic of Genoa by France. Born into a large family, he had an older brother named Joseph, younger brothers named Lucien, Louis, and Jerome, as well as younger sisters named Eliza, Pauline, and Caroline. His family was originally from Italian nobles who came to the island of Cress in the 16th century. In 1777, his father Carlo was appointed representative of Cress at the court of Louis XVI. The strict upbringing of Napoleon's mother had a major impact on his personality during his childhood years. He was baptized as a Catholic in Ajaccio Cathedral shortly before his 2nd birthday. Due to the good position and relations of the Bonaparte family, he had better educational opportunities than the residents of Cress at that time. At the beginning of 1779, Napoleon went to a religious school in France to learn French, and a few months later he was accepted to a military school in France. He spoke French with a noticeable French accent and was never able to spell French words correctly, which is why he was often teased by other students during his studies. After completing his studies in that school, he was accepted to the prestigious military school in Paris in 1784. He continued his education in artillery training in this school. After the death of his father and the reduction of his income, he completed the courses of 2 years in 1 year. His examiner in this school was the famous scientist Laplace, who was later made a member of the Senate by Napoleon. After graduating in 1785, he joined the army with the rank of 2nd lieutenant of artillery. After the French Revolution in 1789, he retired from military service for 2 years and spent his time in Paris and Cress. At this time, he was strongly in favor of nationalist movements in Cress, so that in a letter dated May 1789 to Pasquale Poli, one of the leaders of the Corsican community, he strongly criticized and slandered the French and their capture of Cress. He spent the first years after the revolution in Cress and in conflict with the revolutionaries, royalists and nationalists of Cress. Bonaparte was a direct supporter of the Jacobins and commanded a group of Cress militia. In 1792, he was able to convince the French army authorities to accept him to serve in the army again. In this year, a coalition of European powers was formed against the French Republic, and the two sides went to war over the areas that are located in Italy today. In 1793, a counter-revolutionary rebellion broke out in the city of Toulon in the south of France, and the city was occupied by Royalists and British forces. The French Revolutionary Army besieged Toulon by land. The siege progressed slowly and without results until Bonaparte was appointed as the deputy commander of the artillery. After deploying his cannons in the formation he had planned for a long time, and after a heavy shelling, he captured the hill of Aiguet Rake overlooking the bay and opened artillery fire on the British ships. This action caused the ships to flee. 2 days later, on December 17, the Republicans attacked the city's fortifications and were driven back. But Bonaparte rushed to help with a reserve column and was wounded in the attack. This action led to the victory of the Republicans, and after that the city was captured by them. This victory promoted the rank of Bonaparte. 13th of Vendémiaire, 1795. After the fall of the Robespierre brothers, Napoleon was put under house arrest due to his association with them, but was released again within 2 weeks. On October 3, Royalists rioted in Paris and were advancing on the positions of the French National Assembly. At this time, Napoleon was entrusted with the responsibility of protecting the assembly, and he used artillery for this purpose, using his experience. On the 5th of October, which was equivalent to the 13th of Vendémiaire, he severely suppressed the Royalist forces using heavy cannons. During this repression, 1,400 Royalists were killed and the rest were forced to retreat. Success in this suppression brought Napoleon great fame and fortune. The first campaign to Italy, 1796 to 1797. In 1796, Austria, taking advantage of France's military weakness, attacked Germany and northern Italy and took areas out of France's hands, which greatly angered the French people. Napoleon, who had reached the position of commander of the French army in Italy after the suppression of the 13th Vendémiaire, left Paris 2 days after marrying Josephine Beauharnais to take over the Italian army. First, he defeated the Austrian forces in the Battle of Lodi and drove them out of Lombardy. He was defeated in the Battle of Caldero, but he won again in the Battle of Arcole and advanced towards the south of Italy and the land under the rule of the Pope. By the end of 1796, he captured northern Italy and a part of Austria. In March 1797, he again pushed his forces towards Austria and forced Austria to sign a peace treaty. According to this treaty, large parts of northern and southern Italy were given to France, but according to a secret clause, the Republic of Venice went to Austria. Then he conquered Venice, and while looting its treasures, he ended the 1,100 years of Venice's independence. During this campaign, Napoleon's influence in French politics also increased significantly. In the September 4th coup, he handed over political power to his supporters, the Republicans, which made them more dependent on him. After reviewing the military situation, Napoleon concluded that the French Navy did not have the ability to confront the British Navy in the English Channel. For this reason, he decided to attack Britain's economic interests in India by occupying Egypt and being present in the Middle East. In May 1798, Napoleon became a member of the French Academy of Sciences and then left for Egypt. Among the forces that accompanied him in Egypt, there was a delegation consisting of 167 scientists specializing in mathematics, physics, chemistry, and geodesy, who engaged in exploration activities in Egypt, and among the discoveries of this delegation, the Rashid stone can be mentioned. On the way to Egypt, he first went to Malta, which was under the control of the Knights of St. John, and captured it. Due to the French origin of the 200 knights of this group and their dissatisfaction with their German commander, there was not much resistance against Napoleon's attack, so that the casualties of his army in this battle were only 3 people. Napoleon and his army escaped the pursuit of the British forces and finally reached Alexandria on July 1. On July 21, the Battle of the Pyramids was fought between the French on one side and the Mamluks of Egypt and the Ottoman Empire forces on the other, which ended with the victory of the French. But on the 1st of August of the same year, the British Navy managed to deal a heavy blow to the French fleet in the Battle of the Nile under the command of Horatio Nelson, so that except for the remaining 2 ships of this fleet, it was sunk or captured. This defeat challenged Napoleon's dream of a powerful presence in Egypt. Later, in early 1799, Napoleon pushed his forces towards Damascus and succeeded in capturing the port cities of Arish, Gaza, Jaffa and Haifa with 13,000 soldiers under his command. In the meantime, the capture of Jaffa was very cruel, so that in order to save ammunition, 1,400 prisoners were killed with bayonets or drowned, and the killing and looting in this city continued for 3 days. Due to the casualties caused to Napoleon's army due to disease, he failed to capture Acre and retreated to Egypt in May. In order to retreat faster, on the way back to Egypt, 6 soldiers were poisoned by his order. However, a group believes that this action was taken to prevent the torture of the sick and surviving French troops by the Ottoman forces. While in Egypt again on July 24, he defeated an Ottoman amphibious assault at Abu Qir. During the campaign to Egypt, Napoleon was informed about the internal situation of France and Europe through newspapers and messages that reached him, and in this way he learned about the defeat of France in the War of the Second Coalition. On August 24, 1799, he took advantage of the temporary absence of British ships on the coast of France and returned to France without having any orders in this regard, and entrusted the command of the forces in Egypt to General Kleber, in French, Jean-Baptiste Kleber. At the same time, an order was sent from the Directorate to Napoleon, according to which he should return to France with his army and repel a possible military attack on French soil, but due to weak communication lines, this message did not reach the French general. He finally arrived in Paris in October. In this situation, despite Napoleon leaving the battlefield, the Directorate was too weak to impeach him. On November 19, Brumaire 18, of the same year, with the complicity of some members of the Directorate and his brother Lucien, he dissolved the Directorate in a coup. After this coup, with the approval of the new constitution, power went to the French consuls, which was a council of 3 people. Practically, in this council, Napoleon had the power as the first consul. Napoleon Bonaparte crossing the Alps. In 1800, Napoleon made another campaign to Italy by crossing the Alps. In this attack, he recaptured the lands that were captured by Austria during his stay in Egypt. With the help of his brother Joseph, who led the peace negotiations, he imposed the Lunéville Peace Treaty on Austria. In 1802, Napoleon re-established the law of slavery, which had been banned after the French Revolution, in the French colonies. His action caused a riot in Haiti. The French forces faced strong resistance in suppressing this rebellion and also did not succeed due to yellow fever. After the peace with Austria, with the conclusion of the Treaty of Amiens between England and France, a short period of peace was established in Europe from 1802 to 1803. Among the obligations of this peace treaty was the withdrawal of British forces from the new colonies of that country. But the peace between France and England did not last long. The British royal regime was worried about the influence of revolutionary ideas and thoughts on the British royal regime. England objected to France's involvement in the creation of a new alliance in Switzerland and France's seizure of Piedmont, although these two countries were not among the territories agreed to in the peace treaty. Also, England did not leave Malta, contrary to the commitments of the peace treaty, and finally declared war on France in 1803. Among other important events of this era was the Louisiana Purchase. At this time, considering the bad financial situation of France and the difficulty of defending the French colonies in North America, as well as the risk of war with England, Napoleon decided to sell these colonies to the United States government. During this deal, more than 2 million square kilometers of territory claimed by France were ceded to the United States for $15 million. In 1801, Bonaparte became the head of the French Academy of Sciences and appointed Joseph d'Alembert as the permanent secretary of the Academy. Napoleon was recognized by the Senate as the Emperor of France in May 1804 and was crowned in Notre Dame Cathedral on December 2 of the same year. In 1805, he declared war on Europe and the Netherlands, Austria, today's Belgium, annexed a part of Prussia, Switzerland and a part of Austria and rushed to Russia with nearly 500,000 people and defeated Russia in the Battle of Borodino. But when he reached Moscow, he saw that the Russians had burned the provisions and the city and fled. The emperor could not stay there long because there were few provisions and heating devices. That great army returned only less than 40,000 people. At this time, Russia, Austria, and the Kingdom of Italy, which was an independent government in the south of Italy, and Prussia and Sweden united and formed an army of over 1 million people and defeated Napoleon in the Leipzig plain near the city of Berlin, the capital of Prussia, Old Germany. Defeated, one of Napoleon's important battles fought in the Leipzig plain and near them was the Battle of Dresden, which took place in the state of Saxony, which was a battle between Napoleon and the Russians, Germans, Austrians, and the commander of the Germans was Karl von Blücher, 85, and with victory Napoleon was with him, and he was exiled to the island of Elba, located in the south of France, near the island of Cress, Napoleon's birthplace. After staying there for 10 months, he escaped and moved to Paris to regain the government. His former generals who had joined the new government blocked his way to capture him and hand him over to Paris or kill him. Just a few minutes before the start of the war, a shout was heard. It was Bonaparte's shout, who said to wait. He tore his shirt and said, "I am your emperor. Is there anyone who wants to kill his emperor?" It was at this time that the soldiers' blood boiled and they threw down their weapons and shouted, "Long live the emperor!" He then took back the government. At this time, the European countries they sent a message, the text of which was a declaration of war. Their slogan was, "We are not at war with France, but with Napoleon. As long as he is alive, we cannot sleep comfortably, but the people and authorities of France love the emperor from the bottom of their hearts." Not only did they not hand him over, but he supported and waited for the emperor to give them orders. At this time, the British sent an army of 80,000 people under the command of Arthur Wellesley, who was a very brave commander, to the north of France in the Waterloo area, and the Prussians, under the command of their emperor Gebhard Lebrecht von Blücher, who their number was about 87,000 people. They moved towards Belgium to merge with Wellington's army and defeat Napoleon with the alliance. At this time, Bonaparte pushed the French army, which was about 120,000 people, to Belgium to prevent the merger of the British and Prussian armies. He managed to do this, and in the Battle of Ligny in the city of Ligny, he defeated the Prussian army, leaving only 30,000 of its 87 million men. The rest were killed, wounded, and fled. 84. Wellington that this when he heard the news, he took a stronghold in the highlands called Mount St. Jean, next to the agricultural fields and the houses of the farmers there, and therefore he decided to choose the place of war. Napoleon, who had defeated Prussia and the Prussians had only 30,000 people left and fled to the north. Napoleon sent one of his generals named Grouchy to pursue them and emphasized that they should not stop pursuing to destroy them, and safely went to Waterloo to Wellington. But the night before the battle, it started raining and the movement and firing of the cannons was a big problem because wet gunpowder does not work and spoils. It is 11 o'clock in the afternoon on June 18, 1815. The British and French armies are facing each other. On the left side of the battlefield, there are several farmers' houses, which is called Hougoumont, which is a suitable position for defense, and part of the British forces are in that trench. Have taken. In the central part of the battlefield, there are several rows of bushes, Les Hay Saint, where part of the British soldiers are entrenched behind a piece of sharp wood embedded in the ground to prevent the attack of French cavalry. On the right side of the field, there are some houses for farmers. Péplotte, in which the British soldiers are not, and Napoleon considers it the best position to attack. With the cry of the Emperor, the war begins. Marshal Ney, the bravest commander of Napoleon, who is the commander of the cavalry, begins to attack the center of the enemy's corps, which was composed of fierce Englishmen and Scots. The artillery targets the left wing of the British army. Half an hour has passed since the war. It is 11:30. General Grouchy, who is chasing Blücher, hears the roar of cannons from the Waterloo area. One of the generals named Girard insists that he stop chasing Blücher and go across the plain to Napoleon and help him. He rushes. At the same time, Blücher divides the remaining Prussian army into several parts and sends them to Waterloo to defeat Napoleon with the help of Wellington. Napoleon will join, unaware that the Prussian army is joining Wellington and he is resting. From that side, Marshal Ney, with unparalleled courage, takes the central part of the battlefield that was in the hands of the British, Les Hay Saint, and breaks through the English lines one after another and flees. Faced with a lack of cavalry, he asks Napoleon for cavalry. He also sends his last cavalry units nicknamed Milo to help him. There is nothing left to win. Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, has kept the soldiers in line by force of threats. The majority are running away. Marshal Ney is too close to Wellington. Suddenly, there is nothing left. The screams of several thousand people were heard from the west side of the Waterloo area. The Prussians attacked the French relentlessly. The British turned from defense to attack. Part of the Prussian army went towards Napoleon. Seeing this scene, 25,000 people from the guard quickly formed a square formation around their emperor. They took and prevented Napoleon from being killed. The French army is paralyzed and fear and panic is spreading among the French soldiers. The French army is broken and everyone is running away. Tried in a military court, and he said only one sentence in his defense: every person has a duty to fight for his country, and then he was sentenced to death. Despite the people's insistence on remaining in the imperial position and promising to support, he did not fight again and surrendered himself to an English ship. He surrendered to the British in the hope that they would accept his offer to live in the city of London. It was decided that this belligerent creature should not enter England, and after holding a meeting, the result was that he should be exiled to an island in the Atlantic Sea called St. Helena.